Hello everyone, got another video on the way. Disclaimer, nothing meant or intended for legal purposes, nothing to be taken out of context. It's all history, experience, opinion. This topic has come up and I'm going to call this vid Breeding Good Dogs with Bad Conformation. Now, I guess just like beauty in the eye of the beholder, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Bad conformation can be seen as in the eye of the beholder. But what's bad conformation or bad structure? There's different types of structures in the breed. There always has been, from the tip of their nose to the tip of their tail. But some conformation is not good, even if people accept it or don't mind it or even like it. But what I would call bad conformation is something that hampers the dog either physically, athletically, or health-wise. So there's different opinions on that. As far as structure goes, if a dog is born with a gimp or missing a foot or twisted leg or some fault that they're born with, it's not their fault, but it could hamper them as far as performance-wise. Now, production-wise, it may or may not hamper them. Things like being too bow-legged, cow-hocked, swayed back, brittle teeth, brittle bones, too thin bone, things along those lines could be considered bad conformation. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad dog, and it's up to the person whether they want to continue breeding that dog. But something that I consider major faults I didn't keep. For example, Miss Rowdy had a even bite, nice perfect bite, but in every litter she produced one puppy that was heavily undershot. Sometimes it was a male, sometimes it was female, didn't matter, but there was one. And I can't remember any litter she had that had two that were like that, but it was always one. One litter was a male, another litter was a female, another litter was a female. She wasn't bred that much, but of those 3 to 4 breedings that I remember her having, one pup always came out heavily undershot. I didn't keep them because I didn't want to continue with that, whereas it might start producing more dogs that were heavily undershot. And I'm talking, a wide gap and crooked mouth. The teeth didn't come together. The canines didn't come together properly. So I kept those out of my breeding program. But like I said, throughout the history of the breed, there's been dogs that were freakishly built or weirdly built. Ugly little females with don't even look like a pit bull or that's just the way they're built. Ugly and not very conformationally sound. And they throw good dogs, conformationally sound dogs, well-structured dogs. That again, it's up to the person to decide whether they want to keep them in their breeding program or not. Some did, some didn't. There's not enough data to say how much those dogs that had those heavy faults, how many produced dogs without those faults and dogs with those faults. But I know for a fact if you continue with something, you have a major fault, it's going to pop up more often as you move along if you keep keeping dogs built like that. If you have one or two throughout several generations that are like that, it wouldn't be too bad, because you can fix that problem generally in one breeding. Let's say the dogs are short and bow-leggy, long-bodied, and cowhawk like that. You breed it to a dog that's not built that way, and generally it corrects that problem. You still might get one or two that are built that way, but you're also going to get some that are not. They're going to have better conformation, not be cowhawk, more straight leg in the back come down like they're supposed to, and not so bow-leggy. Uh, so it's just a matter of breeding them to see whether they produce that fault at all, and if they do, in what percentages, what numbers. Like Miss Rowdy, one pup out of each litter that's heavily undershot, I can deal with that. I don't have to keep that dog in my program. And if someone did, and they bred it, which some people did, like Rancherita Kennels, Bugsy, she was heavily undershot. To my knowledge, she didn't throw a lot of heavily undershot dogs. So it was corrected in their breedings that they made, meaning if she did throw them, there wasn't that many to where it came back to me and they say, hey, Richard, all she does is throw undershot dogs. There's too many of them. It never happened like that. She threw good dogs. And her offspring did too. So, again, it's up to the person whether they want to continue with a dog that has those type of faults. And they can be corrected. Part of the things, one of the things I always say is don't introduce a problem and you won't have it, or don't lose good traits and you'll always have them. But you have to admit, and I have to admit, that there are problems and faults in dogs, all different kinds, and they can be corrected through breeding. And that's done all the time. And I myself have done it too. It's with me, it's just the idea, if I don't continue with the fault, that's how I eliminate it more often than not. And if I don't lose if I don't lose good traits, then I have more of a chance of keeping them going. But ultimately, you're going to lose something here and there. If it's not too bad, you accept it. If it's too much, you correct it. So that's one of the things with structure. You can correct it if you practice good breeding practices and use solid individuals after that, and then not continue following dogs that have those major faults. So I'm going to go through some people. You know, one of the things that we see in my day, we saw a lot of were the bully son dogs, the short, squatty ones, generally coming from, in fact, they came from 3 particular breedings. Bully son to Long's Tuffy, bully sons to Long's Baby, and bully sons to Art's Missy produced those short, squatty dogs. And I had bully son dogs that had uh, the Art's Missy and the Long's Tuffy stuff in them. And I seen several that had the Long's Baby stuff in it. So those dogs did produce short, squatty dogs. In fact, I had a bully son dog named Bully, who was off of Hall's Sharon, and Hall's Sharon Getaholt, sired by Hall's Robert. And he was that way, real short and squatty, more so than Robert if you've seen pictures of Robert. Just real pronounced. And his brother was the same way too. Now he was bred, my friend had these dogs before I did. They came from Bobby Hall, but they went to a friend of mine. He gave them to me. And he bred Bully to Click's Zipper. The pups from that litter, some of them were pronounced short, squatty like that. Some of them had more leg to them. So again, you can get both. Still kind of short and squatty, but not so pronounced, and some very pronounced. And believe it or not, there were several guys that liked those type of dogs. And you know, besides Bobby Hall, there was Ken Click and Victor Woodsill and Jerry Branham and Uh, Even some of the guys in Mexico, I saw a lot of those short, squatty bully son dogs, even though I didn't know exactly how they were bred, and I didn't know, wasn't real familiar with the handlers or breeders that had them at the time. You could tell they came down from that stuff. They looked just like Stomper. They looked just like uh, Midnight Cowboy. And some of them were built that way, and some of them were different colors. Some of them were black, like those dogs were. Some of them were brindle, like those dogs were. Some of them were red. Some of them were buckskin, but they were still built that way. So you have several guys, and I just named a few, that actually like those type of dogs. Now, why would they like them if you would consider them not structurally sound? Because they were fast, intense, powerful, hard biting dogs. Now, there's counters to those, and just like any competition, you have different styles and you have counters to different styles. So, as long as a dog that's not structurally sound, or what would be considered not structurally sound, can do what it needs to do and utilize uh, what it has to be able to perform, then the structure is basically built for that particular style. Most of the dogs, they weren't head dogs. They weren't fancy Dans. They didn't use defense a lot. They didn't maneuver around a lot. They were come and get you, use their strength and speed, use their mouth to do damage, and they were strong and intense in the corner. And even Eli Jr. was bred to Long's Tuffy, and from that later, that's where Stomper Jr. came out of. The Long's Tuffy to Bully Son produced Stomper. Eli Jr. to Long's Tuffy produced Stomper Jr. And he was built and looked like those dogs, real similar to Stomper and Midnight Cowboy. Short, squatty, bow-leggy. Thick bone, thick. That's another thing, too. They can take some punishment because they're thick boned and heavy muscled. So they have their place. And one of the counters to those, I talk about it all the time, was the Boleo dogs. More taller built, better balance, great air, maneuverability, wrestling ability. So it's just personal preference of what you like, what your family of dogs is about, and knowing the traits. So what someone would consider faults, another one sees them as benefits because the dog is able to achieve its goal by using the traits that it has to do so. Just like some people don't like dogs that are too thin bone. They're frail. You don't take punishment well. So there's that back and forth. But in this particular case, and some other cases, where does that come from? And again, if you look through the history of the breed, most of them, especially the Kobe dogs, are very well built, a lot of leg under them, good boned, heavy muscled, stand taller, and other ones not so much. And again, more of the bully type, thick, shorter, squattier, more compact. Some more terrier type, like the gas house dog, Grip, or Fly of Panama. But coming up into the 50s and 60s, you had Ed Crenshaw, who's known as a very good breeder, a great breeder. Several people used his blood. Carver, probably the best known for using his stuff. And along with Earl Hunter and Ray Long and Jake Kaler and others. And those dogs had that build. And that's where I think it's coming from when they crossed the Bully Son to Long's Tuffy, Long's Baby. Because if you look at dogs like Steinberg's Diamond, Freddie Jones Major, and Black Bart, and Leprechaun, Reno to some extent, Gimp for sure. Those dogs were short and squatty like that. And back then they were known for having hard mouth. So in my opinion, that's where that build comes from. You see it in Arch Missy dogs. You see it in Boomerang dogs. Boomerang was kind of squatty like that too. Not so pronounced. And he was more of a well-rounded built dog. But he was on the shorter side if you look at the vids and pictures of him. Right? And then you have, the white dogs coming down on one side, coming down off of Crenshaw's, Carver's, Snow. Now Snow had more leg on him, but he had those E. Crenshaw dogs behind him. And that's where you see that build in the white dogs. They were thick bone, very durable, able to take punishment, strong, a little bit different style. They weren't really that barnstorming, powerful type. Some of them were good all-around athletes. Generally the crosses, but even some of the straight ones were. Like Elrod, I saw him go. And what was his name? Something Dog. Mighty Dog. Yeah. I think there's a dog food named that. Anyways, Mighty Dog, kind of short, squatty like that, but a little bit taller, but more of a all-around athlete. Bullshit and Alien, of course, they were short and squatty. Bullshit was physically a good athlete. And so, but they have that build. That's where it comes from. So a lot of these dogs I'm mentioning, they were good dogs, which some people would say had bad conformation, and they were bred and they produced the like. Some of them, the structure was improved depending on the crosses they used or how they came out, even if they were more on the purer side, right? But that's where I think a lot of that comes from. Even you talk about Long's Baby and Red Buck and Satchmo Bully and Tuffy and all them. Their sire and dam had that built. They're off of Sam and Tana. So Sam was off of Kennard's buck, who was actually a black and tan or black, and he was built that way. And Tana certainly was built that way. So you kind of have it doubled up on that bottom side on that breedings from Earl Hunter and Ray Long, Long's Tuffy and Baby, the two females most notable from that breeding. And Earl Hunter, they had those dogs, bred them to Bully's son. Carver was involved in all that. Carver gets a lot of credit, which he deserves, but he did work with a lot of people. And he did have several different bloodlines. He had the Kobe Leitner stuff. He had the Jim Williams stuff, the Ed Crenshaw stuff, the stuff from Jake Kaler and Bud Womack, and you see all these people where he either was partnered dogs with, or he owned outright, or borrowed dogs from, or he was friends with these people and they shared breedings. Eddie Klaus and all these different people. He was very conscious that way of how to breed dogs, where the good ones were, how to acquire them, how to breed them, and all that. But that, to me, in my opinion, is where they came from. So, and again, you see it in the Ed Crenshaw dogs, the white dogs, Buster Arch Missy and all that. But the point is, how to breed them. And again, some people kept that style, kept that built going. They liked it. But even then, if it becomes too pronounced, how do you fix it? Well, in Bobby Hall's case, in my opinion, he had those type of dogs. When he threw the Maloney stuff in there, they had more leg under them. Dogs like Bully Son Jr. and Benny Bob, predominantly Bully Son, Eli, whatever you want to call it, But those dogs, they had some of that short squatty, but they were a little bit taller. They weren't so pronounced. Like Hall's Sharon Get-A-Holt, she was real short and squatty. But uh, Bully Sun and Benny Bob were to a degree, but not that pronounced. So how do you breed them? One of the easiest ways to fix it is throw something that doesn't have that in them through a cross or even line breeding. For instance, if you put the Bully Son stuff or the Eli Jr. stuff, the old stuff with the newer, say, Rascal blood, Rascal was not built like that, and Rascal didn't really throw short, squatty dogs like that, had more leg under them. That's one way staying within the family of dogs, meaning there's similar backgrounds, there's commonality, but fixing the problem. So you don't lose the blood, but you've improved on the structure. You can do total outcrosses. Bully Son to Mendocino. Mendocino was Bolio's sister. Those dogs were by no means short and squatty. The Bolio, Mendocino, Andy, Goras dogs. Put them together, you got more leg. You still might have some that have that short squatty, but it'll improve on the height of the dogs. Anything that you put with the so-called Daibo blood improves on that structure, because there's several different types of Daibo breedings or Daibo dogs, whether you want to say it's a Zeke Black Widow or Spike Black Widow or Daibo Black Widow or Tombstone Bolio or the Maloney stuff or the Usselton stuff or the Mayfield's Nigger stuff, or that are not built like that. The Daibo dogs are generally considered to be structurally sound. And if you use that either as a family of dogs, line bred, inbred, or not so much inbred, but line bred, or use it as a cross, it's going to improve the structure of your dog. A lot of the dogs in my day who were considered structurally sound, like Jimmy Boots, like Hank, like Champion Tonka and Snubby, and Flo and Fontenot's Booger and Maloney's Davis, and just anything you would consider Daibo blood during my day had pretty good structure to them. Some better than others, but they were not known to be not structurally sound. And that's one way of improving the structure. It would be like way back before my time. You have some fault in the structure in your dogs, throw some Kobe blood in there. Because those dogs were bred not just for their performance and gameness and intelligence and all this other stuff that's involved. They were bred for their structure. They were used as the standard for conformation in several cases. And Jimmy Boots was a very sound, structured dog. Beautiful animal from head to toe. Even the alligator dogs and the Clay and Soko and all of them, some of them, they were on the shorter side, but not too pronounced. And Alligator was a well-built dog. And so, in my opinion, back then, that's one of the easiest ways to improve the structure on your dog. Besides performance, not taking performance out of it, because that works too, but just structure. That was one of the ways to do it. Throw some Daibo blood in there, wherever it's coming from. Or you could do that with the Bolio stuff. Throw that in there. It'll improve the structure of your dogs. And, Bolillo's heavily Black Widow, so along with some Kobe Leitner from Heinzel, improve the structure of your dogs. In Mexico, with the red buck, that had a tendency to produce dogs that sometimes were not so short and squatty, along with the Fontenot's Booger, who went down to Mexico too. Well-structured dogs, Morphine used a lot of it, different people used a lot of it, as well as Fontenot and a lot of guys in the Southwest, East Texas and Louisiana area. And then you have, a Booger coming down from Davis, Maloney's Davis, who's coming down from Spike Black Widow stuff. And it's just, coming down from Davis was sired by Maloney's Toot. Toot is Spike Black Widow. So you see dogs like Toot, you see dogs even with half Daibo stuff in it, like Strider, Greenwood Strider. Just well-built dogs. You look at them and you see, deep chest, leg under them, thin waist, good balance. That's the one thing about the Bolillo dogs, and even to a certain extent, a lot of the Finley's Bow dogs that RC and the Soso boys had, and Tito and the local boys had, bred down from Finley's Bow, even though he's Kobe. I'm speaking structure-wise, they were well-structured dogs, good balance, where their feet extend down from their shoulders almost straight, which gave them good balance. Where sometimes you see it's not the bow-leggy type, it's not the type where the legs come closer together or the feet come close together. Straight down, well balanced. Squared up a lot of times. Some of them long-bodied, a little longer bodied. But when you have that height to you, it's okay to have a little bit longer body. In fact, it's preferred by some people, because not only do they stand tall, but they have a deep reach. So you see that in those types of dogs. That's one of the reasons why the Daibo dogs were so popular, is because of not just their performance, but the way they were built. You don't have a lot of flaws structurally with them. But again, you have the E. Crenshaw stuff and the Long's Tuffy, Long's Baby stuff, more the short squatty type. People like them because when you get dog, you want to have your own stuff, your own blood, and you want them built a certain way to perform a certain way, and you either accept it when you get it, or you look for it because you like it, or you start breeding them and they grow on you, and you see how the performance matches the build, and you like them. Just like boxing, some people like a more taller boxer type, stand up, and some like the short squatty power hitters like that. It's the same thing with dogs. So you have all these different structures, but breeding good dogs with bad conformation, it's something you can fix. And like I said, they consider bad conformation, someone else considers it good. They like it. So I hope this helps answer the question. A little bit of history, a little bit about what to do about it to fix it, and to keep it going. To keep it going, if you like that structure, you keep it going. If it becomes too pronounced, those are the ones you don't breed. They have to stay within a margin of error. Short and squatty, great. Not too short and squatty. Tall and thin, great. Not too tall, not too thin. Not too frail. So, breeding is exciting in that respect, where it's a journey of finding the right ones to breed to, what you like, the ones that can produce, the consistency. And in some cases, you get dogs have a little tiny bit of both, They're tall, but not too tall. They're short but not too short. They're long but not too long. They're short but not too short, body-wise. Some have longer neck, some have shorter neck. So it's the individuals you choose how to either keep it going or adjust it as you move forward. And then you choose the ones that fit that your criteria. So a lot of good dogs with bad conformation have been bred, have been improved on, have been kept consistent. It's all a matter of the person that's doing the breeding, what they expect, and then the results of what they've done will show them whether they're on the right track or not. So once again, thanks for your support, and more vids on the way. Thank you.